Hello, fellow homebrewers. JP here, and I want to introduce to you the brand new Brew Built X1 Conical Series available at More Beer. More Beer sells the highest standard in homebrewing equipment, and the Brew Built Conicals are just that. They're made from mirror-polished 304 stainless steel, and they come with loads of features that you and I have been looking for. They have a full 2-inch bottom dump valve, which will eliminate your clogging issues, while the sturdy base includes 4 reinforced legs, just like those big Pro tanks do. More Beer also carries the Brew Built line of options and add-ons like casters, pressure kits, and even external glycol chillers. So you can find out more about the new Brew Built X1 Conical Unitanks by going over to morebeer.com for detailed videos on the entire line of Brew Built Conicals. You can trust Brew Built with your next fermentation, and you can trust More Beer to find the right conical for you. Brew Built at morebeer.com.
Everybody, welcome to the session. I'm your host, Justin Crosley, back in the studio after a... what do I call it? Do I call it a long weekend or too short of a week? I haven't decided yet. Maybe my guest and I, we're going to have to decide what the proper description for this weekend was. In the studio with me today, direct from Australia, we've got Wildflower. Topher Bames in the studio with me. Welcome, Topher.
G'day.
I'm happy to have you here.
We're happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm really glad that you stuck around after the Firestone Walker Invitational Beer Festival weekend is what I'm talking about that we did, which we're going to give you a bit of a lowdown. But I met Topher last year, and he decided to stick around to do a show with me this year, and I'm super happy about that. This show is brought to you, as always, by my good friends over at More Beer. Go to morebeer.com. Check out their Brew Built line of jacketed conicals. They're awesome. You can be a home brewer and use them. Maybe you want it for your pilot system as a pro brewer. I don't know. Go check it out at morebeer.com. Or just go to their website every single day for their deal of the day. They have cool deals of the day all the time, so you can get hooked up. Check it out at morebeer.com. So Wildflower, like I said, is here, and they are from Marrickville, Australia, which is also known as, and I always have to try to get this right, Gadigal-Wongoland. Yep. Which I'm going to have you explain to me in a second. You go to wildflowerbeer.com and find out what we're talking about, because if you're listening in the U.S., there's a pretty high likelihood that you haven't tried their beer.
Very high.
Yeah, so if you want to go look it up, wildflowerbeer.com. We've got a little bit to try here on the show today, and of course it was at the Firestone Beer Fest with us. So just to give our listeners, both here in the U.S. but in Australia, Marrickville is basically the suburb of Sydney.
Yeah, that's right.
That you're in.
Well, actually, before I do that, I have to say thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being here.
I owe this show a decent amount of credit for me ever making beer, being at Firestone. Even just before, I was on the phone with my wife, and she was like, what do you, she's back in Sydney. What are you doing now? And I said, I'm about to record that show with the guy. And she was like, wait, what guy? And I was like, I just sent her something from the session. And she messaged back. She was like, I know that fucking voice.
Wow, nice.
How many years of driving and listening, and her being like, these guys are just like, anyway.
Tell her I apologize to you in person.
No. It's really no need to apologize. It's really a joy and a great honor. So thank you very much.
Well, listen, I feel the same. And actually, like I said, I met you last year, and it was because my GM Kevin had brought some beer over that you were sharing at camp, and him and I both were like, and I didn't realize you had been on a show with Jay here on the Brewing Network even years until today. Yeah. We both tried that beer and we're like, Oh yeah, please come on the show. Just please come on the show. Just great beer.
Thank you. Thank you. So Marrickville is a suburb of Sydney. So Sydney, east coast of Australia, midway down. The climate is oddly similar to San Francisco.
Okay.
And Sydney. A lot of similarities. Beautiful, beautiful city. Sydney is that suburb that every city has, which is close to the original airport. It's under the flight path. It's also relatively close to the CBD, or what we would call the central business district, like the center of the city.
Okay.
So we're probably only 5 kilometers, which is about 10 feet, I think, is the freedom unit.
Yeah,
is that about the same?
Yeah, 10
okay,
feet,
cool.
yeah. You can jump.
Sorry, even though I grew up here, my freedom units gets a little
you forget
dusty.
them.
Yeah, exactly. No, 6 to 7 kilometers from the city center. So I live in Sydney, I would say, and the brewery's in Sydney, but the suburb, or the village, if you will, is Marrickville. And then, as we say on sort of all of our branding and our bottles, we make an acknowledgement of country, which is pretty widely done in Australia. And by that, I mean we acknowledge who owned, maintained, looked after. Actually, ownership isn't quite the right term. Who were the custodians of the land before colonization, right?
Got it.
Mid-1800s, white people just came and fucked up the place, essentially. And that's a broad generalization, but
sure.
For many, many, many thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, the land that the brewery stands on was a trading area, because it was quite low-lying area between two different language groups.
Okay.
We would call them in Australia. You could also call them. A lot of Americans might call them tribes.
Mm-hmm.
Don't read that word is generally associated with First Nations people in North America. But we would say language groups or clans sometimes, who are part of the same nation, the Eora Nation, which kind of covers most of Sydney. But amongst those were families who had different languages. So,
those two families were Gadigal
and Wongal. Yeah,
okay.
the Gadigal is sort of people, so the Gad and the Wong. But when I'm talking families, I'm saying huge. These are families that speak, clans that speak all the different languages. There was some some metric of hundreds of different languages spoken in Australia pre-colonization.
Okay.
It's the oldest living, it's the oldest civilization in the world, and it's still living.
Oh, wow.
So we're predating the Egyptians by 50,000 years.
Amazing.
Right? So, not 50,000, but quite a lot. I don't know when the Egyptians were. But there is so much cultural knowledge and heritage and understanding from our First Nations people in Australia that there is a movement, and it has been going for the past sort of 20, 30 years, I'd say, in Australia, to acknowledge that as we think the Romans are cool. The oldest man-made structure in the world is just in a river in Western New South Wales, and it's a fishing. I told you you're going to have to tell me to stop.
No, I'm not going to tell you to stop. If you keep going with this stuff, I'm listening.
It's a series of locks to fish, see a migratory fish or whatever coming upstream, and you can use these locks to trap them in certain areas, and you're hunting them.
Yeah.
It was only recognized as a UNESCO heritage site 2 years ago.
Wow.
And it's literally the oldest thing
in the world
that we know that humans build.
Right.
So there has been a fairly decent campaign, from white settlers to erase this history, and us saying that our brewery is on Gadigal Wongal land does very, very little in terms of advancing the sort of what's the word I'm looking for, the agenda of First Nations people. But it's the least we can do to say we recognize that this land always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Aboriginal is the term we use for First Nations people in Australia. So while we have a lease on a land that a landlord has, that was never their land in the first place.
Right.
So anyway, that's the Gadigal Wongal.
Well, what I like about it, and maybe you're not, you're certainly not changing the course of history, but maybe you are the future. Before I found your address, I found that statement on your website.
That's cool.
And that's what I think is sort of impressive about it. And you mentioned that there was some people like you trying to do that, trying to give respect to what the land was. And yeah, so as I'm digging around the site, and because I want to go find it on a Google map and understand, because I've been there, by the way, at least to Sydney.
Yeah.
But the first thing I found was brewed on Gadigal Wongal land.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll say the rest of the statement too, because it's a lot of what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Brewed on Gadigal Wongal land with regenerative organic grains, wholly fermented by a diversity of yeasts and bacteria collected from native flowers in New South Wales. Which, it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
But I love it. It's it's a very descriptive one-sentence mouthful. And I appreciated that. And like I said, then I had to go back I don't think the town is called Gadigal Wongal. And so just a little research and I got to you on this. So I love it.
Yeah. We sort of use both. And actually in Australia, you could, it's part of the official way of sending parcels or postage to someone else is you can write, Wildflower Brewing Blending, 11 to 13 Brompton Street, Gadigal Wongal Country, Marrickville, New South Wales. It can be. You don't have to include it, but
you can.
It's legal to do that. Yeah, so it is a part of our address of where we are.
I love this.
But yeah, I have not known for being brief. As
that's fine. We're fine.
So
here.
therefore, the tagline is punching the character limit.
Yeah, I like it. Well, here's another thing I want to say, especially having been to Australia. This is going to sound random. Your beer's not that expensive.
In Australia?
Yeah. Now, I know that you think it is. I've heard you mention it.
Yeah.
Okay, last time I was in Australia, I paid like $20 for a pint at the bar of anything maybe slightly resembling craft. And trying to buy stuff at the store, I was much broker back then, by the way, which is hard to believe. I'm pretty broke now. And I just remember one of my massive takeaways was why we have so many homebrewing listeners in Australia. But I'm looking through your bottle prices, your 750 ml bottles.
750,
20, $30.
Yeah.
You had kind of mentioned expensive, but I was paying that for like a can of something when I was there.
You still are able to do that. Okay. So you still can. It's reductive. So you're saying Wildflower's beers aren't expensive
compared to what I noticed.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I was sitting on Bondi Beach or something, and that could be why.
Probably
but like even at the grocery store, it felt like they were more expensive than your beer.
Yeah, I am a real bad business person.
Okay,
and that's kind of where that starts.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
So this might be my last. No, I'm kidding.
right.
I subscribe to a much more European way of thinking about beer.
Okay.
But in a country that has volumetric tax. So I'm a little fucked with that aspect. But I like the idea that beer is primarily accessible.
Yeah.
And, the beer that we're going to taste later, even though we're making something that, for some subsection of the beer community is lauded, or it's people make it, it's rarefied or whatever, and people used to line up for these styles of beers and whatever. At its core, our beer is not fad. It is food. It is like a food processing technique.
Okay.
We are storing nourishment from a seasonal harvest of something that will go off, and preserving it for future nourishment of our bodies, right?
Okay.
So this is a cooking technique that we're doing, and the use of mixed culture and whatever. It's like a lot of these restaurants,
like
cheese.
A
lot of really, really. It is exactly
historically
like cheese.
Cheese.
Yeah. But like there's been a lot of huge movement of fermentation in restaurants, and that's sort of dying off because I really push this. But a lot of these fermentation styles were really things that have been done in homes for hundreds of thousands of years.
Okay.
And then they're passing them off as selling them as this thing that's like super rare and only like the cool kids can do it who charge, $300 for a tasting menu or whatever, when really that's just what was done at home. And I've always wanted to maintain that aspect of what we do as something that is like food preparation or food preservation, in the same way that we pickle pickles, that we ferment cabbage to make sauerkraut. All of these things are temporary harvest stored for future consumption. And so I kind of want to maybe I artificially keep the beer price too low because I want people to be able to access that on a daily basis. We're not doing something that's super special. What we're doing was done hundreds of years ago, and it's a little bit easier for me now because I have electricity and I've got pumps, right? But like this isn't something that needs to be. I don't know. We don't.
I guess we don't know. Yeah,
we have no clue. So maybe I need to look at my pricing, but also
I've done the same
there's
here.
There's a lot of things that are baked into that exact thing. Like I want it to be accessible so much.
To me, so I don't think mine was quite so noble, but when I opened the Hop Grenade, I've told this story on the show before, but you know, I was a lover of sour beer and Cantillon, and at the time when I first started drinking beers like Cantillon, they were this price. In fact, $20 was kind of a lot. You know, you were getting them for 18, 15 every now and then. By the time I opened the Hop Grenade 10 years later, 45. They were selling for $75. Out here, they were going crazy, $75. Crazy. So when we opened this place, I asked my buyer, like, hey, I want you to go figure out like how much is it to buy these cases of beer. And it turns out the price was not that exorbitant to buy at wholesale. No. In other words, Cantillon had not raised his prices as much as the retailers had done here. Yeah. So because we could buy it at a reasonable price, we made a rule here. We will price it at the same margin of all of our other beer, which made it quite affordable. It meant you could still buy a bottle here for $20, $25. Yeah. What you can't do is take it. So we're a bottle shop to go too,
but not those ones.
Anything like that where people were charging $75, $80 somewhere else, we said you have to drink it here because there was like a population of people buying them and selling them on eBay or just selling them to their friends. So we're like, but our whole point was, I was like, I never would have been introduced to Cantillon if it was $75 a bottle. I was broke. I was just starting just starting the brewing network. I had no money like that.
And that style of beer, like a lot of other styles of beer, was a byproduct of a time and of a place for the people that were drinking it. It is a plebeian product.
Right.
Beer is. And while there are many efforts, and in the way that we present our beer and talk about it and serve it, there are many efforts to elevate that.
Sure.
It can't be left away from the plebiscite. And this is crazy for me to talk about that because I make beers in 750 ml bottles, but lambic, and like particularly straight lambic, and not even the bottle conditioned goose, like that's your common denominator. Well, it was.
Yeah.
You know, that's the tradition of that, was that kind of basic continual beer. And while I think it's nice to elevate those products beyond where they're from and their tradition, I think forgetting about that tradition and trying to profiteer off of it is for me at least, is like highly disingenuous. And the way that you were doing it then, selling those bottles for $20, $25, whatever, that helps the producers, because if someone's charging $70, $80 a bottle, they're not moving the same amount. And
it was helping.
Any brewery I know is in the business of making and selling beer, not looking at bottles.
Right.
So we want people to drink it, like not look at it. And I think that is happening with mixed culture beer a lot. Like here, but in Australia, and from what I've heard, and people in America, is, you know, people have their cellars now, and they've bought them, and they're not buying as much, and that's totally fine. There are so many aspects to that, and one of them being like people not drinking as much alcohol as they used to, and I fundamentally agree with that aspect. But we didn't make these beers for you to look at them. Like we would love for you to drink them. we did the work, you know, and buy it again as well if you like. But anyway,
So with this sort of pricing philosophy, what you're really saying is that your wife is either a lawyer or a doctor.
She's a teacher, a primary school teacher.
So it's not even. Damn it! I was really looking out for you there.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh man.
No. But so we have a little family. We've got 3 kids, and they're quite young. And while the business has started at the same time of those children, you know, last weekend was 7 years of us having our cellar door open. My eldest daughter turned 7 in September.
Nice.
My eldest child, who's a girl, turns 7 in September. They've lived with each other the whole time, and I think it's actually kept the brewery smaller than we would have probably gone.
Yeah,
like because I have shit to do with kids, like it's fairly intense, but also we've had to the kids have watched me doing something that I love, and we'll find out in therapy sessions of them
Later
in 30
on,
years if that was the right call or not. But I don't know. For me, it's something that I can give them that, doing it while they're growing up, and this idea of loving what we're doing. It wasn't what I saw from the generations above me. You kind of do your job, and you hate it, and you come home, and maybe there's a space for people to be able to love what they do. And that's not saying work isn't work still. You don't work a day of your life because you enjoy it. I don't believe in that so much, but the idea that they can feel empowered to follow something that they love, why wouldn't I? So
totally.
I don't know where it's going to end us up again with their therapy or with the business, but
I love this.
I think it's kind of right. I don't know. I'm certainly not upset of where we've come to.
You're one of the only people who's ever come in the studio. We're coming on 19 years here, who's been that honest about your philosophy about liking what you do. Mm-hmm. So everybody says nowadays, "Oh, you should love what you do. You should love what you do." Don't really say why. Just to be lazy about it, just to have fun with it. And for me, I think you were just alluding to, I grew up watching my folks. And I had a lot of folks. My parents divorced and I had new folks and all, they all hated their jobs.
Yeah.
And that, watching them go through that and age faster than they should have because of it and all that. So when people ask me what do you want to do for a living? Before I found the Brewing Network, I was I want to not hate my living.
Yeah.
And I went to college just for that, not knowing exactly what I was going to do.
Yeah.
I worked 4 jobs at the time to try to, but all of it was to figure out, how am I going to not hate what I do? Because you got to spend that much of your life doing it.
A lot of it.
And you're really saying, then your loved ones have to see you do it. Your kids got to see you do it. I like you just saying that, because I've said it on the show before. I don't think I've ever heard anyone else put it that way too. It's not just love what you do because we're greedy.
Yeah.
It's love what you do because it sucks when you don't. And I think that we should set examples like that and work hard to do it.
Yeah. If we can, it's a point of privilege to be able to do something.
You're right. By the way, work's still work, even if you love it.
And I think that's important. I think that's an important distinction that a lot of people don't make.
Yeah.
And they dip too far into how much they
totally
love their, quote unquote, no, it's not work. And that can have ramifications for your personal life,
Yeah.
And
no, you know what I loved the most about this week and this weekend?
What's that?
Taking yesterday off. Not working.
Oh yeah, yesterday. Oh my gosh, the whole thing. Oh wow.
Yeah, well, because we're going to learn more about everything you're talking about here. Yeah. So Firestone Walker this weekend.
Yes.
Your second time there.
Second time.
And you were pouring there, of course.
Yes. Well, I don't do a lot of pouring. I'm really bad at pouring. I get real tired within 30 minutes. Of the interaction.
Okay.
You read it on the thing on our subline.
Yeah.
You'll hear it in the way I talk about our beer. You can read it on my blog. I want you to know everything about this beer. There is no too long didn't read. And so I go pretty hard, and I'm like, no, you haven't heard the about the microflora of the ground and the mushrooms that I got that yeast from. You need to know all of this in order to understand this beer.
Yeah.
And then after 30 minutes, I'm like, I can't.
It's too much. Yeah.
So no, I did a lot of. I was actually complete. You can hear my voice. I couldn't even speak on Saturday. I was having to get real close to people's ears. It was a bit embarrassing.
Yeah,
but
that's great.
But we were pouring. The brew was pouring. We had 4 beers. My brother came out from New York and helped me pour. And our head brewer and our head of hospitality, Braden and Namisha, respectively, came from Australia, and we had a great time.
You're originally from the U.S.
I am. Yeah,
from Texas.
Yes,
the great state of Texas,
the big one.
When did you move to Australia?
2009, fully.
Had you already met your wife, or you met her when you got there?
I was traveling before that and met her.
Okay.
And then I was like, oh, maybe I could go back.
Yeah.
And when I finished high school, I wasn't into the idea of going straight to college or university.
Yeah.
I was really keen to do something else. And I don't know if this is picked up as a trend in America or not, but I'm going to speak about this in a way that is me looking back. So I'm not some sagacious person that knows about it. But at that time, there wasn't something that I really wanted to study. Mm-hmm. And I'd had acceptances to universities, but I was kind of like, why would I go spend 50 grand or whatever, 30 grand, whatever states, 15. at school when you're kind of just going to get drunk and not go to class anyway for the first year. Could I do that somewhere else that's not in America and enjoy the time and spend that saved money? So I had met my wife, and then when I finished high school in Texas, I moved to Sydney, Australia, and worked at and lived at a school over there. And there's kind of an English, Australian, New Zealand, Irish.
You met your wife in high school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were really young.
Go on.
And then there's this kind of culture of what they call a gap year.
Yeah.
This movement between this kind of space in between finishing your, secondary education, high school, and going on to university.
Sure.
So I tapped into that kind of culture, lived at this school, and then I went, then I realized I did want to go to university, what I wanted to study. And then I ended up doing university there in Australia. So I'm quite close to being 50-50 in terms of my tenure in each area. But I'm an Australian citizen now. My wife's Australian. We have 3 kids. It's home. Sydney's home.
Sydney's home now.
Yeah.
My nephew just graduated last week.
Yeah.
And he's doing what I would call a very loosely interpreted version of a gap year.
Time to come to Sydney.
I think Americans are throwing gap year around like it's, I'll just sit at home. And I was like, I'm trying to tell this kid, by the way, he's a good kid and he's a good student.
Yeah.
And he also accepted to a couple universities, but decided he wanted to take a year off.
Can you defer to your acceptance?
Yeah, great. I think so. And he's calling it a gap year, but we're like, me and my brother are like, Kim, what are you going to do in your gap year? Which, by the way, it doesn't have to be, profound, but it needs to be something.
Yeah.
We're not talking video games here. Because he's not going to be a video game designer. Otherwise, I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
So we're like, what are you going to do? So he's got to travel. He wants to travel. He's an avid mountain biker.
Yeah.
And I had to wrap my head around it because I took a gap year because I had to. I couldn't afford it. I could go to school. It kind of messed up my life for a little while. So I was a bit opposed to it. I kind of wrapped my head around it. He's cool. A good student. He's a good kid.
Yeah.
And I think he might take a year off like you did and then realize, okay, I still know what I want to go back and do something.
Yeah.
But you went to a school for your gap year.
Well, it was like a boarding high school, and I was looking after boarding students. So kids who live in regional Australia, and they came, they're parents shipped them off at grade 7, and they're living there, and so I was doing that, but it also gave me a place to live for when I ended up doing university and things like that. But I think I like the concept, and I like to hear that it's sort of happening. A lot of people take a gap year in Australia and the UK and do exactly as your nephew. They'll work at a pub or a bar or something like that for 4, 5, 6 months, do the busier seasons. And then they might go do a ski season, working on chairlifts or whatever in Europe or something like that. You just get these little jobs, but
right. I'm all about that.
At those times, you don't need a whole lot of money really, and you don't have a whole lot of responsibility necessarily. And I think it's great to hear that he's doing that. If he wants to come do some mountain biking in Sydney, let me know.
Oh, he's all about it. I will let you know. All right, let's take a quick break because we've got your beer on tap here. So we're going to take a quick break. We've got an organic table beer that we're going to try. I already tasted it before the show. It's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
I didn't think it would be. But there's 2 reasons for that.
Because it's so low.
It's 2.9% alcohol or some shit. Maybe less than that.
It's 2.9.
Yeah, so I was like, okay. But then also I left it warm for a day because I had to driving home from Firestone. So I got it here last night. It's the only thing I did yesterday. I didn't do shit yesterday, Topher. I got home.
Came and brought it to the cool box.
But I came here to get the beer in the cold box last night because I wanted it to be here overnight. I didn't want it to be 2 days. Anyhow, it's delicious.
Well,
when we come back, we're going to taste it. So hang in there. You're listening to The Session, and we'll be right back with organic 2.9% table beer.
The leader in affordable, high-quality kegerators is here. Introducing Komos, the kegerator designed with serious beer drinkers in mind. It features an all-stainless steel draft tower, a major upgrade over traditional chrome-plated brass towers, and Komos keeps your new tower cold with their air-cooled tower fan, wrapping your beer lines in frigid coolness. Your beer is poured from innovative forward-sealing faucets that don't leak, so they stay cleaner for longer. Dual gas inlets on the rear of the fridge allow you to run both CO2 and nitrogen gas. Serve your beer with CO2, serve your kegged wine or even cocktails with nitrogen. The digital temperature display has the largest range available, allowing you to use the Komos Kegerator for fermentation if you need to. And now Komos Kegerators ship with Duo-Tight draft fittings for that click-to-connect assembly we've all dreamed of. Buy direct from KomosDraft.com and receive free shipping on your order. That's KOMOS Draft.com.
Welcome back to the session. Thank you for hanging out with us. We're still hanging out with Topher at Wildflower. It's not Wildflower Brewing Co. It's not Wildflower Beer Company. Everywhere I looked, I tried to find all that, and I just saw you're like Cher.
I think we say Wildflower Brewing and Blending.
Brewing and Blending, okay.
Yeah. But I think I just like calling it Wildflower.
Me too.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, so you said you guys started in 2016.
16 we started brewing.
Okay.
And 17 we opened the tap room.
And the name Wildflower comes from, I guess, I don't have a better way to say it than comes from your fermentation techniques.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so describe that to me, because it looks like you found every bit of flora and fauna that ends up in this beer.
Yeah.
Locally or around Sydney or at least New South Wales, I guess.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, so tell me about that, the whole concept.
In this one, how much time do we have?
the medium concept.
Yeah, okay. Medium concept was that, look, I was working in the brewing industry since 2013 over there in Australia, and there was just a number of things about the industry and the beer itself that I was thinking to myself I didn't like about the industry, and I wanted to do it in a different way. So one of the things was the use of the word as local beer, right? And beer was made local by it being brewed locally, not necessarily it being made with local ingredients. Okay. And so I wanted to take that step a bit further and saying, okay, let's confine ourselves to things that we only get in our backyard. Let's do that. The second part that I was kind of not loving was, 2013, 2014. This is like IBU race. Oh, yeah. Bitter time, ABV race as well, kind of beers. And while we did make this 2.9% table beer from the very beginning, it wasn't as widely available as it is now in Australia at that time. But I was bringing these beers that I was making elsewhere home. And
so homebrewing
with my wife. No, I was homebrewing as well, but I was also working professionally since 2013.
Okay.
In the brewery, and I started homebrewing in 2010. Okay. Yeah. Again, large thanks to the show in terms of all the other things that I ended up doing, and trying. But 2013 had been working at a professional, like as a brewer, when I finished university, and I was bringing these beers home, and my wife Bernadette was like, "No, I don't like that. No, I don't like that." And these are like big ABV beers, and big. No, this is cool. Like saying, I kept saying there, things like, you just need to try a little bit more of these like super bitter beers, and then you'll enjoy them. Yeah. Turns out she's right. It
did happen to some of us, by the way. We beat ourselves into submission. Our palates
saying this is good, right?
Yeah, right.
Quadruple IPAs, and. We were on a trip back home, back in Texas, and I picked up some Noble King. Do you want Jester King's Noble Hop Saison, and much to this was at a time where that was really hard to find and really a small brewery. And I shared a bottle with my wife, and she was like, "No, I really like this." And I was like, "Well, I'm such an idiot. Like, of course, it's dry, it's full of esters. It has like a lot of fermentation characteristic, little bit of acidity. Like, it shares touch points to flavor profiles of other drinks. Yeah, cider, dry Riesling, funkiness of sake. Right, like." It's not just beer, hoppy stuff.
And Jester King was so good at that, too, by the way. Because there were breweries trying to do all that, but they were too acidic still. They were too this, they were too that. So, in particular, that was like the right beer at the right time for her to try and for you to maybe go like, oh, right. Yeah. So then we started with this side with these two concepts in mind. Let's make beers that are complex by them being deductive rather than additive. Let's remove all of the bullshit, all of the highlighters, all of this oak barrel, these cacao nibs, this whatever fucking adjunct people put into beers and call more complex. Yeah. Let's make them complex by removing all of those things and allowing the raw material to speak for itself. And specifically just those four raw materials, right? Okay. Malted cereal grains, like no adjunct, no brewing process aids whatsoever. Malted or raw cereal grains, hops, a mixed culture,
that is foraged from native flowers
Mm-hmm.
in our area, because again, we're trying to make local beer, and water, like unadulterated Sydney water.
Yeah.
And so that was the concept. It's like, let's see what we can do with that.
Okay.
And then we'll put that out there. So that hence this idea of like the byline Wildflower. When we started, we had all of the mixed culture from native flowers in New South Wales mixed with the Saison DuPont strain, which I'd spent some time at Jester King when Garrett and Adrian were there. So this is like 2014 or something like that. And that's how they had started their culture. So I was like, great, I'll do the same thing, but in Sydney. Anyway, that culture was retired because of an epic pectinitis infection in 2022.
Oh, no.
And since then, since mid-2022, it's just been entirely mixed culture from native flowers in New South Wales.
You're kidding.
No.
So I don't even know how you begin to do that. Are you making teas with flowers? So
Basically.
Okay.
It's like you take an Erlenmeyer flask.
Yeah.
And like, like a glass flask. I take like 5-liter ones, shove it full of anything that's in blossom, because that's where honey bees are going.
Okay.
And that's where sugar is. And where sugar is, yeast is, anywhere in the wild. And then we just cover it in wort and just let it ferment.
Okay.
If it tasted good, we kept it going. If it didn't, we dumped it.
Got it.
Simple as that.
And you would keep, I assume, what's it called? Like
Propagating.
Yeah, that. But there's a certain type of vessel when you keep adding on top. Like it usually has a lot of beer in it. Oh, damn it.
Like a Solera.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Solera.
Yeah.
So, but this is like a mini version of it. Because if you say you would keep it going, that doesn't mean you ended up with 10 yeast strains, I assume. You wanted to combine them.
That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We added them all together, and then like the flowers were separated out. Like we weren't using once the beer was fermenting well, we would just keep the yeast and bacteria that was there, not the flowers themselves.
Yeah.
And the ones that we liked was about 1 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
We blended them together at the beginning of our at the beginning of our brewery, and that's the culture that we used from 2016 when the fermentation started till 2022.
Wow.
And then we restarted it again in 2022 using similar methods but without the DuPont strain.
Okay.
So yeah.
Wow. And you restarted because of this failure, you said?
Yeah. This like, oddly enough, this infection.
Okay.
Which I documented like quite a bit on, like if anyone wants to know, it's really like in depth on the blog in terms of...
Let me say this real quick. Do go click on the blog, because as I was reading about even in your about, or maybe it was in a couple of the beer descriptions, you said, yeah, if you want to know more about this, go to the blog, but be careful. There's there's a lot there.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm telling you, every brewery who's ever started a blog, I was waiting to click on that and find out that your last blog was in 2019,
yeah.
right? And sure enough, it was like not a month ago. Like in other words, I just want to tell people the blog is real.
Yeah.
It's like actually real.
Well, like a lot of there's definitely a few years where I wasn't writing as much about the process.
Okay.
And but I would go I always go into depth about how the beer is made.
Okay.
Because in the same way of how we're talking about, I don't use the term wild. Like the brewery is Wildflower, but we don't make wild ales.
Okay.
We make mixed culture ales or Australian ales. And then
why
with
would you
big
not
thing,
say they're wild ale? Because you're not putting the open container out in the yard?
Well, what is a heap? And when does a pile become a heap?
Okay.
And when does a heap become a hill?
Yeah.
It's inherently vague, that term, wild. And one person's measuring stick is going to measure differently than someone else's.
Okay.
And I don't want to enter into that vernacular type of argument with someone else. I am quite happy just to tell you how I did what I did.
Okay.
And say that. Now, is that harder for people at Point of Tap, or when they're selling it? Potentially, but I think mixed culture ales, or at least in the UK and in Europe, it's mixed firm.
So let me be your salesman for a second.
Yeah.
So I'm your salesman. You hired me,
yeah.
and I got to go out there, and then I go. I'm from Wildflower, and they want me to say, well, what do you sell?
Yeah.
And I can't say, well, I sell beer that's fermented from wild yeast.
You could say,
because it is,
well,
in a way.
See, now you're entering the vernacular conversation,
right?
Yeah,
right. Because otherwise, or I give the long description, right?
I say, let me ask you a question back then.
Go on.
Once it's gone through one successive fermentation, so once I have taken the yeast off of a flower and then put it into a ferment, and then I harvest that yeast from that fermentation, wild or is that domestic? Have I just domesticated it in that single fermentation?
Right.
And then furthermore, like, and this is no knock on how anyone speaks about how their beer.
Yeah.
When we talk about spontaneous fermentation, these beers are still being, like, we are still preparing wort in a very specific way and leaving it out in specific environments in order to encourage the introduction of yeast and bacteria from that,
you are
that
still doing that.
We are no. I'm just saying any brewer who's talking about spontaneous.
Yeah.
So what is spontaneous, right? And I'm not saying I'm happy for everyone to call whatever they want.
Of course,
in their way.
Course.
I'm Switzerland in this. I'm just like, the same thing happens. It's like I think there are spontaneous beers, and I'm happy to draw my line in a certain place.
Yeah.
We don't name any of ours that, but it's a similar word that draws a certain amount of impetus from people, and they someone calls it something, and then you ask them how they made it, and you're like, well, I disagree with that.
Sure, and I can see that, but in your case, I also think you have much more right to call your beers wild than you do call them spontaneous.
The BJCP would disagree.
Really?
Yeah.
Because you're not. If you were putting a cool ship out, like I said, in the attic,
we do that for some beers.
For some, but for a lot of them, you have this house culture that you went and took from Wildflowers in your region.
Yeah.
And the BJCP says once you've done one fermentation, it's tame?
If you read between the lines, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It has to be an initial inoculant or something. There's some terminology.
So it has to
like
be
that.
Spontaneous.
Yeah. So what's the difference in wild? I don't know. Anyway, hence, if you were a sales rep for me, which I don't have any, so I don't know how you're getting paid.
And I'm terrible at it anyway, so
great.
And it's fine.
I think it would just be a longer conversation.
Yeah.
Most of our beer in Australia is sold at like restaurants.
Okay.
It's a hand sell.
Got it.
And we're small because of that, but that's okay. Like,
does that count your tap room too? Like
no,
tap room first, restaurant second.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Restaurants and bottle shops, and there is a big natural wine movement in Australia. So wines that are. I'm going to define natural wine. I'm not going to do that because that's another freaking craft beer. But what I would say is that wines that tend to be fermented with yeast and bacteria that's on the skins of those grapes.
Okay.
Right. So people have an idea of like, bad term, but indigenous fermentation or natural fermentation. Again, all fraught words.
Sure.
But they have an understanding of that, and so we do tend to sort of actually play on that, but borrow from that vernacular a little bit to talk about our beer.
It is difficult, if we can't talk about things anymore, both in life and in beer. Like, and I think you know what I'm saying, because as soon as like descriptive words that meant something that were a description yesterday are either offensive or being borrowed too much today. At some point, do we just stop speaking to each other? Well, and obviously, I'm exaggerating.
Yeah, no, but
I don't mind these borrowed words.
I don't mind borrowing at all from, and I think no, we can't stop talking. We have to push through this.
Yeah,
and I think that respecting how other people speak of, want to call themselves, how other people want to call their products, and not vilifying them for them being less authentic or not as holy as thou. Like, fuck that. Like, just, that's why, so my the approach isn't so much, you do you and me do me. Like, I have a stance of where this is what I make. Yeah. And I tell you exactly how I do it. And I promise you, that's how I do it. Yeah. Like, and we'll just be very, very clear about it. And the blog is like, okay, this is everything. Like, here it is. There's no mystery as to how this is done.
Or I guess what I'm getting at too is there's also no appropriation, and so that's what I'm saying. When it gets into those realms in beer and everything else, then sure. Now we. But I just like that you still have to be able to describe the fucking thing in my glass.
Well, I've been more and more just calling them ales.
Yeah. Okay.
Because like the beer that you're tasting,
that's fair.
Like is that a sour beer? Is that a saison? Is that a mixed culture beer? I don't know what to call it.
I know. You're helping me with my point a little bit. It's still, I don't even know if I have an end. But okay, so I'm not your salesman. I'm the hop grenade salesman who has to sell this beer to somebody.
No, that's your job, not mine.
Right? Exactly. You're like, I wrote it up.
So,
But I think I'm gonna go. Okay. It's a beer fermented with originally wild yeast that is close to a saison.
Yeah.
And maybe has a little bit of a lambic quality.
So here you are.
But
You're
I still have to use words.
Yeah.
Like I just appropriated lambic, but I don't. But my customers know that.
Yeah.
I had to use saison because it's got some farmhouse things happening. Like, so I have to use a vocabulary.
But you're describing what it is rather than putting a name and let someone else go for it. Like
so that
honestly,
you're fine with. You're saying
we're talking about it as a being. Like, I think that's great. Like, listen to the way you just did that. Was like, you're going to. We haven't turned the customer off straight away by saying, "Oh, it's a hoppy, it's an IPA," and "Oh, I don't like IPAs." You know, like we've gone. Let's describe the flavor profile, and like, yes, this is really hard, and that when it's 10 people deep on a Saturday night, you're not selling this beer. That's totally fine.
Right.
Care.
And that's okay. We're not that bar.
Exactly.
So here, that's fine.
Exactly. But you've said, it's kind of like this. Its body is like that. It's got some of these nose characters and some of this. But yeah, I think, they call it table beer because it's meant to be like common. I don't know, something. Yeah, give it a go. And then you have people deciding based on not a style guideline and what they have preconceived notions of it. They're like, do I like those things? Yes or no?
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, since we're doing that, now let's describe the beer to our listeners, but also how it's made.
Yeah.
Because it is a 2.9%.
Yes.
You call it a table beer, and I think most of our listeners know what a table beer would mean. Yeah. Mostly that means the low alcohol part.
Yeah.
But tell me more about it, how it's made. It's also batch 18 of this?
Oh, yeah. We just tend to say which batch number it was.
Okay.
Actually, this might be 19. Anyway.
Okay.
So, yeah, organic. We call it organic table beer because it is a certified organic product in Australia. We can carry that certification to America if we wanted, but it wasn't worthwhile for the 4 kegs that we sent
to the festival.
Right. It is mashed with. Oh God, how is it made? There's so many things coming to mind. We have a brew kit at our brewery that I built in 2022, and we mash in a 2,000-liter oak foudre that I cut like a foeder that I cut the top off of. Mm-hmm. Stepping back. I spent time working at both, like doing a stage, like an internship at both Jester King and at Brasserie Thierry in France. Thierry makes La Petite Princesse, and Jester King makes La Petite Prince. This is my love letter to both of those beers.
Got it.
Just giving a straight this. I did not make this up. Okay, in terms of this was very much inspired by both of those places and both of those beers, which I love.
Yeah.
So when we started our brewery, we make this beer by mashing organic grains grown by a family in Western New South Wales, whose property I'll be at next weekend, hanging out, drinking beers, and letting the kids run around together. Sam and Chris Greenwood have an organic farm whereby they are sequestering so much carbon because of the microflora, the microbacteria. I'm forgetting the word. You're going to have to edit this one out.
Mm-hmm. You can do that. Let me write down a time.
Yeah.
By the way, I never edit out.
Oh, damn.
46. That's it.
Well, because of the biological activity of the soil, because it's never sprayed, they never till. The soil is grown in a way that I would term regeneratively.
Okay,
it's not as organic.
I think
but
here
also
it's just called no-till farming.
That there is that.
Okay,
and then there is a whole certification. And I was at Admiral Maltings today. There is a certification of regenerative organic certified.
Okay,
and usually with regenerative, it's tied to carbon sequestration. So you need to be pulling down more carbon than you are emitting. Essentially, you're not spraying with glyphosate, which kills the bacteria in the soil.
Okay.
Most of the actual carbon sequestration when it comes to barley is done not by the plant, but the soil itself. And I'm so pissed that I can't remember. I'm like the word is escaping me right now of what we call that micro, like essentially that biome of the soil, the microbiome of the soil.
Okay.
They're sequestering more carbon. They're pulling down out of the air more than they are emitting per kilo of, or pound, whatever you want to say, of barley that they are farming, and wheat for that matter.
Amazing.
So it starts there. So we're making table beer.
Okay.
So we're starting in the ground.
Okay.
It's Schooner barley, which is a heritage barley from developed in the 60s in Australia, and a malted red wheat, which is a soft wheat, Beaufort, the varietal's called. Those are both malted by another family friend and collaborator, I suppose, Stu at Voyager Craft Malt, which is in the same area as where the beer is grown, as where the barley is grown. The malt is made on a maltings that is completely emissions free. They are using biochar, so like walnut shells, which walnuts are grown in the area. They'll burn burn walnut shells in a closed burn to make charcoal. To make charcoal, it has to be a closed burn. So there's no carbon emissions from that burn, but there is heat.
Okay.
So he passes hot air past this biochar. He passes air past the biochar, like the biochar production plant, which heats up the air, and he uses that hot air for kilning. So most kilns would be gas fired, or I think there are some electric kilns in America, but those are pulling down on the grid. Stu is on the actual maltings are in a paddock of like a field of barley. So when they are steeping and dropping steep water, every single liter of water is reclaimed and used as irrigation. And then the malt is made in this, again, carbon neutral, or carbon zero, we'd probably call it, because they're not emitting any carbon throughout the process of making this malt. So the grain comes to us. We haven't mashed in yet. Sorry. The grain comes to us via a truck, which definitely puts carbon into the atmosphere.
It's not electric yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it arrives to us in Marrickville. We mill and we mash into this wooden oak barrel, big foudre that's going to put up on its side. And at the bottom of the mash tun is a lattice of wheat chaff, wheat straw, from the same crop of wheat from the Greenwood family that is in the malt.
That's your false bottom?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, is straw. So we have at the bottom of the mash tun, we have a very loose sort of chicken wire mesh, which keeps the straw down.
Okay.
Because otherwise it would just kick up into the thing. But it's about, I don't know, what is that? Is that a quarter of an inch?
Yeah,
a quarter of an inch.
Yeah.
Half an inch sort of aperture for each one. So we lay down the mesh. We lay down the straw, and then the mesh goes on top, and then we mash over that. We mash in this oak barrel. We run off into a
single. It must be single infusion. You can't
it is single
heat
infusion.
This I guess you could pump, but
we could do like hot
recirc.
We could do like hot infusions or whatever. But it's mashed in by hand.
Okay,
and we're doing 500 kilos at a time.
Okay,
this grist is around 300 kilos. So that's about 600 pounds.
Okay,
and that's mashed by hand.
Got it.
So we're mixing it in. So it will be quite hard to get a temperature change throughout that. We can do some pseudo decoction and pseudo turbid mashing on this setup.
Okay.
But generally for this beer, it's going to be going to be single infusion. I made a grant out of a puncheon, so it runs out of the kettle into the grant, which is just a 500 liter puncheon barrel with the head cut off, and then it runs into a 3,000 liter, so loosely like 26 barrel copper kettle, pure copper kettle, which was built again near where the malt is grown, but by hand by this guy who makes stills for the distilling industry.
Oh wow!
And this was his first commission for beer. And when I first saw this kettle, it was a roll of copper on a roll.
That's crazy.
And he built this thing entirely by hand, welded in copper, the whole thing.
Wow!
The kettle is heated by an electric steam boiler, and we buy green energy off the grid. So however much we want to trust that. The whole brewing operation is emissions free where we are, because we're not burning gas and allowing those fumes out. It's electric. Electric makes the steam. The steam pushes into the jackets of the kettle, and we boil there. It's hopped to about 30. Sorry, I don't have the exact grist on me right now, but it's hopped to about 30 to 32 BU with organic hops from the north of the South Island of New Zealand, right around Nelson, where you were, right at the start of the pandemic.
Yeah.
There are 2 organic hop farms in the Southern Hemisphere, and one of them is bigger than the other one, and this is the only one that grows Nelson, and it's the Oldham family. So Colin Oldham, you might have been to his place.
I thought you're going to have to, don't go too deep into this. Mm-hmm. But for years, I've been told that like everything in New Zealand is organic because they don't have pests. So you must be talking about a different certification.
Just actually certified.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, actually certified. And I think they don't have the pests, but to be organic, you also aren't adding synthetic nitrogen fertilizers.
Okay.
A huge... Now you're going to get me on a
You
tangent.
can go a little, that's okay.
30% of roughly 30, depending on your packaging type, around 30% of the carbon footprint of any beer you've ever drank comes from solely the farming method of the barley.
Okay.
If there is synthetic nitrogen used, so we call it urea in Australia. I can't remember what like NPK, like any kind of conventional farm would be using it because you get like bigger seeds, you get bigger, like more tons per hectare, acre. It works, right?
Yeah.
If you're using that, the creation of synthetic nitrogen has a quite a big greenhouse gas emission aspect.
Okay, I see.
And nitrogen is 360 times heavier than CO2 in the atmosphere. So for 1 pound of nitrogen is equivalent to 360 to 400 pounds of CO2.
Wow, okay.
When you spread synthetic nitrogen on a soil, about half of it goes straight into the atmosphere. And about half of it goes into the soil, which gets absorbed and then gets put into the plant. That's fine. When you're making synthetic nitrogen, you also create quite a bit of N2 that goes, a bit of nitrous oxide that goes straight into straight into the atmosphere. So the carbon footprint of beer is heavily impacted by synthetic nitrogen or cover cropping. Cover cropping in an organic method. Are we growing clover or vetch or some legume on that soil? And Stu, I know you're going to listen to this, and I know I'm going to say something wrong, and I'm so sorry, Stu. But for the point of where we're going, if we're growing clover or vetch or a legume, which naturally pulls carbon out of the atmosphere, or nitrogen out of the atmosphere, puts it into the soil, and then we come over that crop next. So we till in that field. So not no till, but we just let that become an organic compost on that field. Nitrogen goes into the soil. It's bound. We put in a seed for barley or wheat. That nitrogen, which was bound on the soil, is now available for that seed growing, and we don't need
extra.
Exactly. So that's the major point about organics and conventional when it comes to what I'm interested in, which is this carbon footprint of beer. I don't do organics entirely because of carbon footprint. I actually think it's much more about nourishment and satisfaction. It's quality of food. We focus a lot about these things based on the same concept of eating a homegrown tomato versus one that you get at the supermarket.
Sure.
Right. They're completely different experiences. Same product, but they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
One satisfies you and it's good, and the other one doesn't.
Yeah.
They don't taste like water. So the farm that we get things from, we do go to an organic farm in New Zealand. So we go outside of Australia for that, because it's kind of the only one at the moment. Well, there's another one, but they don't grow Motueka, and I love Motueka. This is Motueka.
Yeah.
So 32 BU of Motueka. We get, for the last 2 years, we receive those hops in the whole bale. You've been to a hop farm.
Yeah.
When the dried hops, they come off. They look like little cones.
Yeah.
Like little pine cones, like green pine cones. They get dried. They go onto a floor usually, and then they get mixed up and they get compressed into a bale. Always.
Right. That then usually goes to a pelletizer. Yeah.
Usually it does. We grab them straight from there because the pelletizers rip up. Actually, Vinny was here like talking about hop creep and talking about this processing of pellets and how you can't see seed material versus in a pellet you don't know if you have anything other than flowers. Whereas if you have flowers, you can actually see the quality of the picking, like how pure is it just to be cone, rather than seed and vine and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
We do it because I like the mouthfeel of whole cone hops, and also it allows us to access this product, this flower, as close to as it was taken off the farm as possible.
Yeah.
Like just less processed, like a less processed ability. My head's not in the sand, like it might sound like it is with the wood mash tun and the thing or whatever. Yeah. I am fairly interested in what happens when we when we don't allow ourselves the sort of niceties of
the ease
consumerism,
of,
consumerism, sorry, like production,
the ease of these production processes.
And maybe we've lost something, and it's hard to quantify that, and there's a possibility to do it without that, right?
So whole hops in the kettle.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, which is fine.
And then we knock out and we ferment. That's easy.
Yeah.
No. So whole hops in the kettle, and then we knock out. I have allowed myself to have a heat exchange. That is something that's available to me.
Fair.
And then we ferment. We primarily ferment this beer. We knock out at about 30 degrees Celsius. So, oh gosh, hot. I don't know if I'll look it up as we're doing this, but
80,
we knock
80
out
something.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
85.
That sounds about right. It's warm.
Yeah,
and this beer ferments in about 2 days because it gets inoculated with that mixed culture of yeast and bacteria from the flowers.
Yeah, which
has always come from a previous fermentation. All we do, we collect and pitch.
And what's you probably Plato? What's the Plato like the
6.9?
It's okay.
Yeah.
So that's part of your 2 day thing. It's not just the temperature; it's that there's not much fermentable sugar in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it ferments right down. In FV. We ferment in wide, shallow vats to decrease hydrostatic pressure. This is nothing new. Ivan de Beets has been talking about this. You go to Russian River and you see the open top fermenters. They're equal proportions wide as they are high. So we create low hydrostatic pressure, which increases esterification. The majority of the profile of this beer is the esterification of that fermentation via that yeast. That's why it's got such a saison character. It ferments down to about 0.9 for about a week, and then it goes into stainless for about 3 weeks. And during that, it's just dropping yeast, slowly conditioning, ticks down to about 0.6.
Okay.
And then we actually can this beer. It's the only beer that we can, and we can carbonate it. So a mobile canning company comes in, they change all of their parts over to like a Brett kit. We'll run 4,000 or 5,000 liters in can, and then it conditions then for another 6 weeks, and then it's sold into the market. So that's our fastest beer.
That's your fastest beer. It literally could be your fastest beer if you wanted it. Like it's still your fastest. It could be everybody's fastest beer if you wanted it to. This beer could be done in 2 weeks if you did it. In any of the traditional processes. But it's a fantastic beer.
Thank you.
I absolutely love it. Listening to you describe it, I picture. At the brewery, there's a lot of wood. Yep. It's a wooden. I haven't seen photos yet.
I'm
just listening to. To me, and in my head, it's like a wooden barn with a lot of straw on the floor. There's people also churning butter somewhere nearby.
We actually do have a cheesery next door.
I believe this. Like this is how this.
Did you not know that?
No,
that's amazing.
No, I'm just. You're the way. By the way, this is not me insulting you by any means. This sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned like, look, Vinny has these too, and I'm like, okay, when I picture Vinny's brewery, like I'm looking at, even though he has these like open tops, I'm looking at some very high tech stainless steel situation. Nowhere in your description did that enter my mind.
I guess I've been very fortunate to travel a lot. Even after we were talking earlier about having an early career in the industry. After that, my wife and I lived in Europe for a while, and I was able to travel and visit a lot of different places and work at different places, talk to different people, and visit. Like we're pretty big wine. Like we love wine, and I've been to a lot of different wineries, and you just see a lot of the brewery and the whole space, and the beer is sort of this compilation of random influences from all these different places. So I love it. When you go back to the bottling area, there's like a clean floor. We scrub it, and there's like some stainless steel around, and it looks a bit more like brewery like. But when you walk, it is the building was built in 1890.
Nice.
It's entirely Oregon timber. It's a beautiful barn sort of area. The floors were all laid in like the 30s and 40s.
Okay.
And they're all wonky and beautiful old hard concrete.
Heck yeah.
And it's all barrels on the right hand side, and at the back is the cooking kit. I can't really call it a brew house.
You don't call it a brew house.
It is like like what is it? I don't know. Like it's this pots and pans that we cook on.
Yeah.
And so in a lot of ways it is exactly as you say. And last year we, along with a friend who's a cheesemaker and really good chef, we We have a very, very small micro dairy next door.
Nice.
We call it Gold Street. It's a different name, but we're making cheese, bringing in Jersey milk from a farm 40 minutes south of us every single week, bringing in raw and making cheese from that. I might have been influenced by the Belgian tradition a little bit.
It sounds like it, yeah. Hey, listen, I'm getting closer to buying my ticket to Sydney right as we go. All right, I'm almost out of beer in this glass, and it's just delicious and not getting me drunk during the show.
It's hard to get drunk on it, actually.
It is. I like this. I'm enjoying it very much. Let's do this. We're going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, we're going to learn more about Wildflower. Go to wildflowerbeer.com and check it out. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Session. Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and freshest ingredients and the best customer service in the business. Their website features real-time inventory, which means if you can put it in your cart, they can guarantee it'll ship the same day by 4 p.m. on weekdays. Want easy and simple electric brewing? Check out the new Series 2 Mash and Boil, featuring an elevated grain basket so you don't have to calculate sparge water. Williams also features the full Kegland line, everything from Brewzilla to Maltzilla, and a huge selection of duo-tight fittings. Looking for a kegerator? Look no further than the Kegland Series X and Plus kegerators, which feature 4 and 8 keg capacity in a compact footprint, and free shipping to the lower 48. Interested in distilling? Look up their proven Williams American Bourbon and Brandy kits, as well as complete distilling equipment packages and conversion kits for popular systems like the Mash and Boil, Anvil, and the Grainfather. Check them out today. Go to williamsbrewing.com to browse their vast selection. Welcome back to The Session. Thanks for hanging out with us. Still speaking with Topher Boehm from Wildflower. You can go to wildflowerbeer.com, learn more about what we're talking about here, see if you can get the beer. If you're in Australia, I guess you can get it.
Certainly.
And I wanted to talk about one of the things that look like the ways that people can get your beer. It looks like you guys are kind of like a release-based model. Like I noticed you have a monthly box that people can get.
Yeah.
And then, of course, seasonals haven't gone completely out of favor yet. You do like seasonal releases and things like that. Is that how you have Wildflower set up?
It was for the first 7 years.
Okay.
Right? And I think we are... It's interesting you talk about it now because we are in the middle of a transition. For many, many years, we would release beers on the first Friday of every month.
Oh, wow.
And it made sense for us to do that. It might be 2 beers, it might be 3 or whatever.
Okay.
And they might be just new blends, new iterations of, existing beers, like Gold blend. Gold's our main beer. Like the majority, I don't want to get this. Table beer is about 40%. 40-50% of what we make, so it's a lot of it.
Yeah, good for you.
But also the rest of it, what we really started with and what we are kind of more known for is, extended oak aging, maturation, and blending with or without fruit. And Gold is our main beer amongst there, so I use Gold as reference.
When you say that's your base beer, is that what you mean?
Gold is our base. Yeah, is like our malted barley, raw wheat, mixed culture ferment, goes down to barrel for a year and a half, blended back together with various ages of itself, not all the same. The brew day goes back together, and then we release that. So that's probably our main base beer, and then we use that base as the base for a lot of our fruit-free fermentations.
Okay.
But that, like, is main beer. What does that mean? When we're making almost half of the table beer. Anyway, I don't know what main means, but anyway, the release-based structure was definitely what we went with.
Okay.
And so it might be a new blend of Gold, but every iteration of Gold is slightly different than the last one because it's different barrels. It's a different age composition, different barrels. But it was always released in a method of trying to keep consistency over the overall profile of that beer.
Okay.
So if a Gold, I like to say, like if a Gold was going to work well with like a cheese dish at a restaurant, the next blend of Gold or amber or table beer or good as Gold, whatever beer that we're working with, would also work with that dish.
Okay.
Like so the flavor profile was within a band that meant that it would
still be there,
right?
Okay.
We have just moved away from that. Like I think February of this year was our last one. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for this. I've sort of little bit been writing about it, and a little bit of blog posts and a little bit of Instagram and some writing to our bottle club. Like we have an internal bottle club around 400 members, and they
Nice.
get all one-off beers, 10 one-off beers. Like those are
10 a year.
10 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. One-off beers. But outside of that, I've really been consciously, since the end of last year, limiting ourselves in what we do to a more stable set of what we do. I guess you would call it like more of our flagship, I
So
suppose.
that's so like some core beers or something.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because I am concerned and worried a little bit about, so there's a lot of reasons for this, but one of them is I get worried about this idea of consumerism, where we need to get every single little thing. You have to try everything, and a lot of that has been in beer. A lot of that I think has kind of gone away naturally, but I think it still exists in a big
course it
world,
does,
especially
yeah.
like hazy IPAs and whatnot. This, which I don't like, getting the next one.
Yeah, so maybe
I'm
you mean
speaking
like whale hunters, like have to have the next big thing. Like,
Sure.
That's by
Yeah.
consumerism. You mean like if it's not the next cool thing, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
And I have to try everything, and even if it's not good, or gone through like good R&D and had like great thought and process behind it,
Okay.
then we're still going to buy it. Right?
Yeah.
And just as a person, I'm more finding myself going back to things that I know, and things that I know I like. And also, let's be honest, like in Australia, and I know here, like cost of living is kind of crazy at the moment, and we're less willing to take risks on new things.
Yeah.
Because you've been burnt before. You know, it's a little bit harder to grab a $10 can and it not be good, and you're like, shit, I could have gotten a 6-pack of STS, like
I've always been a creature of habit, but now so more than ever. And honestly, the more I've ever gotten into beer, the more I got like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm a little different that way because I've always been that way.
and you've worked in it.
But now you're absolutely right. Like if I'm going to pay $20, $25 a 4-pack anyway, I'd like to know I love it already.
Yeah, exactly.
So, anyway.
And I think that's how I am finding myself personally. Like I'm getting my local fruit and veg from the same place. I'm getting, like kind of tightening in on that, because I mean, like cost of living in Australia is it's a more intense stratification than it is even here.
Okay.
And our economy isn't doing as well as the US is right now.
Okay.
Just on a total thing. So people are having to be conscious, and I'm finding that in myself, but also it's been 7 years for the brewery. And I kind of wonder, like, what does this look like? What is the logical conclusion of continually expounding or like sort of digging from my own creative tap or energy in order to make something of commerce? Like, I don't know that I can keep selling myself in that way.
Okay.
And I'd like to lean in on what we already have.
Sure.
And create a culture around what we do that is quite stable.
It worked for Saison Dupont.
Exactly. and Orval.
Yeah, exactly. Like kind of going back to that.
Yeah.
They were before the what's new culture. They were the who's the best at it culture. And then it was them. They mastered a style. And it became that. So I assume you mean continuing to master a few of the things that you do, not just one, but not 20 a year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, even more sometimes,
Right.
Yeah, we'd like to do one thing really well.
Okay.
And I think it's going to still take a long time to do that.
Yeah.
And so within the boundaries that we have, how do we continue to make those beers better?
Yeah.
Rather than rely on a newness aspect to sell what we do. This isn't going to be easy, this transition for us, because it
probably going to be some pushback too. Yeah.
There has been, we have our membership group, which gets, their unique beers, and we're allowing those beers have gotten a lot better, I would say, even in the past 6 months.
Okay.
Because there's more intention behind that, because you're not so spread. I mean, I think a lot of brewers would understand what I'm talking about here, and I think any painter, like any artist of any, I hate talking about brewers as artists, but like when we have to think about this, like we are continually asked to develop, to get better, and to create. Getting better is different than developing and creating, I have to say. But to make something new all the time, I think does take a toll. And you see a lot of people in the industry that do get really, really burnt out. And I look at places like it's not just because they invited me to the festival, but you go to Firestone and you see someone that's worked there for 20 years. Mm-hmm. I want that. Like that's impressive for me. Like, how do you create tenure in this? Because, you know, I really do love what I do. And I really do think there is a place for these styles of beer, even though they're not as popular as they used to be. Mm-hmm. I really think there's a space for it. And, you know, when you taste the table beer, we don't even talk about that as a sour beer. Like, it's just a beer.
It's a beer. It's an ale.
And I like that we can make that available for people. So we're just trying to find a way to make that work. And so more so now, we have our email mailing list. And when there is a new blend that becomes available of a beer, or we also make 7 fruit beers a year based on named after either my 3 children or my business partner brother-in-law's 4 children.
Nice.
Each one's with a different fruit. You know, that is a decent amount of variety throughout the year. And we get more excited about it when it's like, when I get back to Australia, we're just about to release it. Edward's my youngest child. He just turned 2. We didn't make a beer in his first birth year because I had the pectinatus infection. Oh yeah. And I was building the brew house. So I feel a bit bad.
He's going to talk about
Eddie.
Therapy one day.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. He probably will.
He missed year 1.
Delete this. But we're releasing his beer for the first time, and it's our amber based beer, re-fermented on Montepulciano, D-stem Montepulciano grapes.
Oh wow.
And like, I think normally, like a few years ago, that'd have been like, yeah, cool, another thing through the pipeline, like I'm really excited about it. Like, there's only like 600 bottles. Like, there's like fuck all of this beer. But I'm so excited this is a new thing that we haven't done before, the amber base with red grapes. Now, this sounds so benign. This is like, yeah, everyone's like if I told myself if I said to myself 3 years ago that I'd be so excited as I am about this, I wouldn't have believed it, because it's so like, yeah, next, try the next thing, try the next thing. This came from like a real slow place.
I was going to say, it sounds like you're excited to slow down and focus. Yeah. Because that's, you know, focus is what goes away pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you're unfocused or that I'm unfocused per se, but when you're juggling too many, you know, plates, the focus does have to get spread out.
Yeah.
And then as you get older, your focus just sort of wanes anyway. Right? Like, let's be honest. So I feel like it just sounds like you're talking about slowing down and focusing on something that does make you excited. Even the evolution of this podcast you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Like the shorter format, and you know, I loved having all my co-hosts, and I miss it sometimes. But I get to really just listen to you and focus on what is happening in your brewery and what's happening during this interview. And I've started to I enjoy that quite a lot. It's a different phase of the BN. You know, I don't really talk about it on the show, but hearing you talk about it actually makes me think about why I made some of the changes here that we did.
Yeah.
And a lot of it had to do with the kind of frantic shows and releases and parties and stuff that we did for almost, you know, 18 years.
Yeah.
And so to me, I'm enjoying the Brewing Network just as much as I ever did, but by slowing down a little bit.
Yeah. And I think, like, slowing down, I'm still quite young. You could probably hear it in my voice, but we're not doing less work. It's just on less things.
Yeah. That's that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's not less work at all.
No.
Actually. But that's why I was sort of careful to say it's the focus is work.
Yeah.
The focus is on the work.
Yeah. Improving.
Improving,
not making new, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, again, interesting.
You also might want to, you know, you might get through the middle of that and be like, you know what, I need to throw something new in here.
Yeah.
Right?
I feel quite open to do that. Like, we haven't set any rules for ourselves. Like, as a person, I create guidelines for myself of what the business is and isn't going to do, but I'm not hyper dogmatic in that way.
Sure, yeah.
Like, there are beers that we've made in the past that I've really, really loved, and I feel quite happy and open and confident to, if we decide there's a place to bring that back for some reason, I have no problem rebrewing that. Or because of the the bottle membership club, if there's an idea or an ingredient or something that we'd like to test, or we have an avenue for that. And so we're quite lucky in that space. But yeah, no, again, it's interesting that you asked about it, because I haven't quite fully been able to, and even we're talking about it now, I don't know if I'm doing a great job of kind of not really boxing it up, but not being like, not putting a circle around it and kind of clearly saying, I can't even find the words now.
Well, you might not have finished
what we've
developing that whole idea.
So.
Yeah.
I don't think so. But it's good to talk about, and it's good to see other businesses. You're twice as old as us. Like, yeah, it's to see these things develop. I mean, where are we at? With post-COVID world, how many breweries are there in America? What is this industry going to look like in America or in Australia? In the next 5 years, it's a really open question. I'm really interested to see, like, terrified for a lot of people, and including ourselves, like, because it's a tough market to trade in right now.
Yeah.
But for I don't know what it's going to look like. My answer, I know what I would want to go down doing is just being like really, really concise. Yeah. With myself, and keeping enough of myself out of the business so that I have that there for my family and my kids, but putting enough into it that the beers I can confidently come to Paso Robles next year and pour beers along the best of the best.
It's still stellar, yeah.
Exactly.
I'm proud of that product.
And when Vintage Larza comes up to taste, I don't shit my pants in the same way that I do every time he does. And I'm like, oh God, here we go again. It's got to be good. Yeah. But I want to be able to maintain that kind of quality, and I don't think I can. Personally, I don't have the ability to do that. I don't feel anymore if I'm chasing every single little thing, and I don't think the beer would be better for it.
Well, it's a good amount of foresight on your part, and my listeners who have been with me for a long time and listened all the way through, they know that I had some burnout years, and so I think it's a good amount of foresight on your part to know. Okay, yeah, let's see what happens next. I also think luxury is not the right word. You have the value of having seen the world and the beer world change pretty freaking rapidly. Yeah. I always try to say people like, just settle down, everything changes, everything's cyclical. Yeah. That being said, it's fair for us in the beer industry to know that how rapidly things have and are changing is not only stressful, but leaving us with what's next and leaving us wondering. Yeah. So I think you have that, like you're using that the right way. Just by hearing you talk about it, hearing you describe it, you're using those changes to go, okay, I'm not going anywhere. I love this. I love what I do. Yeah. How do I get better at doing what I do that fits whatever this new world order is going to be, I really should say the new beer world order, because the new world order, oh gosh, who knows?
Let's not go there.
That's a wider.
That's a whole other podcast. That's your history podcast, isn't
there you
it?
go. Yeah. How many people are on your team now?
Full time, there's 5 of us.
Okay.
And then a few.
A lot of work, I mean.
Yeah. And then the part time. Most of our beer is sold at our little cellar door, like our little space in Sydney, and most people in Sydney or in Australia would know of it. It's a great little ecosystem and environment. I like that. I like community. Yeah. So yeah, it's small. It's small, and again, I think that's part of the thing that might help us stay true to who we are. Yeah. Whatever comes.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, here in the U.S., that's kind of what the associations, the smarter people than I in the beer world are saying. It's the community brew houses that are going to do the best. If you're already a good regional, like my good friends over at the 21st Amendment, you're going to do fine too. Sierra Nevada is going to keep doing just darn fine. Yeah. But the rest of us in that middle zone, it's your size that I think, just keep finding your way, and you're going to do just fine. The community brew house. I'm so stoked for you that you sell 40% of your beer as this table beer. I don't even know that would work here in the U.S. So that's
volumetric taxing. Like it's a blessing and a curse.
So you're taxed on the ABV.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's why when you go to the UK and Australia and New Zealand, there's excellent choices of beer at or under 4%. Yeah. Like a buddy of mine.
I love this.
DJ from Mountain Culture Brewing. He makes a bunch of hazies, and he was there this weekend as well. And great beer. I think his best beer is just 3.5% session beer.
Nice.
It's awesome. It tastes. It's a bit fruitier than this style of pale ale that I'm having from. Did you say TDNE?
Yeah, we just shorten it. There does not exist.
Yeah. Which I'm loving, but it has all of this. Like the 3.5 has all of that flavor and depth and mid palate character. And we have to kind of do it because it has to be viable. But anyway, those people that have traveled will know. A great English mile at 3.8 is our best bidder at that. Like the fucking amazing beer. So
absolutely,
we're quite lucky that we're in a country that doesn't balk at the idea of a 2.9%.
Yeah.
I was very worried about that for a very, very long time. And we didn't start selling that beer outside of the tap room until 2020, until COVID.
Yeah.
But it was interesting, this weekend, like the amount of people, punters and brewers alike, that worked that tap really hard. Like they were like, thank you for bringing something. Like, I don't think I saw anything on the list that was in the 3s or 4s.
I don't
it was
think
like
so, yeah.
5 or 2.9. Like we were a real big jump down to it.
Yeah.
And so, I would love to come back next year and see more low alcohol beer in America.
I think it could happen.
I don't know what that. That's just me personally, because when I came into the Hop Grenade today, I was like, "What's the lowest alcohol beer?"
Totally.
That
and
one,
it's yours, or the pale ale that's in your glass.
The pale ale, that's what I got for it.
Yeah. And I'll be interested to see it too, because there is we're drinking less in America happening altogether, right? So my wonder is, are you just going to drink less and it doesn't matter what the ABV is? Or does drinking less mean, I've got room in my life for some 2.9% beer? Yeah. And so I'm super curious about. I would love to see, there's already kind of a Pilsner and lager trend, which has brought us down a couple percentage points from the IPAs. Yeah. IPA is still wildly popular, of course. But still, both brewers and my customers loving making and drinking Pilsners. And maybe that is sort of the step down. So I'd be curious to see. But like I said, I also think it might be, if you're worried about your alcohol consumption, you might just not be drinking in America. I don't know. And so we'll see.
Honestly, I don't think it's a bad thing. This is like, there's a friend of mine, someone who really got me into organic farming for beer is a butcher. And their tagline is like the butcher that asks you to eat less meat. They're in this because they're really into animal welfare and all these kinds of things. And sometimes I kind of think about myself as like the brewer that's into you, asking you to drink less.
Yeah. Well, maybe you're asking them to drink less alcohol, not drink less beer.
Yes, heaps of volume.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Australians are like that. They enjoy drinking a lot more than they enjoy getting drunk. And I feel like a lot of us are in that same boat. I tried hop water for the first time on this trip.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I had one example of it, and it was at Russian River yesterday. And so, of course, it was excellent.
It was, yeah. But
I was like, this is a thing. I really like that. I really like that idea. I'll definitely be making one.
You should. They're getting better. They started out horrible here, and they're getting so much better. Yeah.
No, this one that I just showed was awesome, and I think that's great. That's great. That's something that a brewery can really claim.
Yeah.
Because it's from our industry more than say well, actually let's not put anyone down the bush, but the other sub products that breweries are sometimes making.
Also, if consumers are going to buy a mountain of packaged water anyway, why not make it from our industry?
Exactly.
Let's not make it from Nabisco and Pepsi Cola.
Is that who owns LaCroix?
Oh, yeah. I forget who owns what, but all of the bottled water industry, this is a rabbit hole I could go down, which I will not. It's such a scam, and it's such a ripoff, not just of consumers, but of the place that they're taking this water from.
Oh, yeah.
So really, honestly, if you're going to buy packaged water, which I'm not a fan of you doing, buy it from a local brewery who, by the way, has water allocated to them and treats water and does it all for you. Do not buy it from PepsiCo, which is what's happening to everything.
But I think it's a good trend, and it's indicative of something in America in terms of I do think it's better for people to not drink as much beer, or as much alcohol.
I tried to say that years ago in this industry, Topher, and my peers didn't want me to say those things.
You also didn't listen to
off
it, did you?
air? No, no, I didn't. I'm like the worst culprit. But off air, they'd be like, "So Justin, we all think that, we don't talk about it." Nowadays, it's not really the same. I think you're not the only professional brewer thinking in those terms. And people are like, we're always gonna have to pay the piper.
Yeah.
The rapid boom in craft beer was always gonna have to be paid somewhere.
Yeah.
And if I would make comments about how it was going to be paid in our medical bills, no one wanted me to say that. And even now, they don't like me to say that. Now now it's okay to say what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we should just drink less. But it was never okay for me to say and why?
Because you paid for it.
You did a shitload of damage already. Anyhow, I do think you're right, but again, everything's cyclical. I won't blame any of my statements on Bart Watson over at the BA, but I love listening to Bart Watson.
He's awesome,
and he is a person who has said, guys, even these trends in drinking less alcohol has happened before. It's not brand new, and so everything's just a little bit cyclical.
Yeah, we're here for it,
even our industry. All right, folks, you can go to wildflowerbeer.com and learn more about everything that we've talked about. If you're in Australia, I think you can figure out how to get the beer while you're there. Or, pay attention to when the Firestone Walker Invitational Beer Festival puts their tickets on sale, and maybe you can join us there and taste Topher's beer down in Paso. I did have a great time there. I do want to thank the Firestone Walker crew for hosting us all, taking such great care of us. I had a wonderful time. In the next week or so, you should see the couple video panels that I did, which I think went really well.
DJ's on one of them, too.
It was
Mountain Culture. You got another Aussie brewer on there.
Yeah.
We did. Aussie American.
We did. Oh, and then very shortly after that last panel, I just got hammered. I was in control, which was good. But I do this thing where, I got to moderate. You did see me after. I moderate all day because I'm a professional. I got to get my job done.
You're like a groomsman. This was a best man speaker. After that, done.
After that is friggin' done. Yeah. Well, because I get an hour left. I'm kind of busy for most of the fest.
Yeah.
Then I get an hour to finally go try. Yeah. And I never do this at another fest where I'm just like, oh, I got to try. But at that one, there's so many good breweries, and I've been on the stage all day.
Yeah.
So I do go do that. I saw you later and I was like, listen, I'm so sorry. Whatever I am right now is not normally me. But at this particular last hour of the fest, this is me.
That's me. This is you thinking consciously about your body and your life, drinking less.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm thinking about how I didn't get to taste all that.
Yeah, exactly. No, really, Justin, thanks so much for having us. For having me here and doing this show here. I've always again, a great deal of the reason for me even being here to this network. I mean, this room, when it became this iteration, but so much of the knowledge that people have shared for the last 18 years and people being open and generous. It's one of the things that I'm so connected to this industry for, is the people are so fucking good, and you're one of those people, and thank you so much for having me on the show, really.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate the kind words, and that's why we do it, for stories like yours. So next time, let's do it in Oz, all right?
Sounds good to me.
I want to come sit in this farmhouse where there's cheese being made, and
under the flight path in Sydney. The farmhouse.
Yeah. All right, folks, thank you for hanging out with us today. Once again, go to wildflowerbeer.com. Learn everything you can about Topher and his wonderful team and their beer over there. Thanks to our amazing sponsors, of course, More Beer, Blickman Engineering, Beersmith. Go to 21st Amendment. Go to 21st-amendment.com. Check out their new Raspberry Funk Sour Ale. You'll find that on the shelves all over the place. Light raspberry flavor, sweet fruit, and a groovy sour baseline. 21st-amendment.com. Beersmith Brewing Software. Go to beersmith.com. You can get a free online trial. As always, it's the best software out there. Blickman Engineering, been with us for years. Williams Brewing, my favorites. Williams Brewing has been with me almost as long as some of these other folks. They're, I think, my third sponsor ever, and they're just wonderful people. Go to williamsbrewing.com. And then if you don't do any of that, just click on the Amazon link on our homepage. You can do your Amazon shopping that you were going to do anyway, and that's a great way to help us out. We've got more coming up for you on the Brewing Network, so hang tight with us. Just click the subscribe button or the follow button or whatever it is that you use on whatever podcast thing that you use, and you'll be the first to get the new episodes. Thanks for hanging out with us. Take care of yourselves and your beer.
The Session is a production of the Brewing Network and brought to you by More Beer. Check them out at morebeer.com. Find more content and live video of this show on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Brewing Network. For sponsorship opportunities and information, please reach out to advertising@thebrewingnetwork.com. To reach our hosts, contact feedback@thebrewingnetwork.com.